This afternoon, there is a massive opposition to government's plans to reopen schools as part of measures to ease the coronavirus restrictions. Now, 4 teacher unions, the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, TEU, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, Ghana, CCT. They've issued a joint statement, and they say, quote, "We cannot expose our teachers and students to the COVID-19 pandemic with its attendant sorrows and gnashing of teeth." Well, they're not alone. Civil society organizations have also kicked against plans by government to reopen schools. We have a representative from civil society here to help us understand the concerns. First, though, we'll also be joined by the teacher unions via Zoom. I have Kofi Asare, who is Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch. Mr. Asare, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Also joining us, like I said, via Zoom will be Patrick Kekeri-Enchi. He is the convener for the Teachers and Trainees Advocacy. Dr. Harry Agbano is the former UTAC president. They will all be joining us via Zoom. Hi, gentlemen. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll start the conversation. Let me start with you, Mr. Asare. What do you make of, I mean, I don't know what's going on within the circles, but from what Dr. Okoboy says, clearly there are plans to ease the restrictions, and that includes going to school. In fact, we've even heard that people are being consulted, which is how come this information is out there. What do you know?
Well, what I know is that worldwide countries are gradually easing restrictions, and countries are gradually opening schools. I know that in Africa, for instance, Madagascar, Mauritius, Lesotho have started, and yesterday or so, Cote d'Ivoire announced May 25th, next week Monday, I guess, for reopening. Senegal is easing restrictions. Nigeria, the curfew has been lifted, and so there's a gradual movement towards the commencement of a semblance of normalcy, if I have to put it that way. And in Ghana, obviously, we've seen gradual easing of restrictions in Ghana too. We are all expecting the president to come and address the nation end of May on the next level of relaxation of restrictions or otherwise, depending on the situation on the ground. And so there's a general aura of, you know, trying to ease restrictions blowing in across the world. But this has not been without challenges, we must admit.
So I'm not sure if you have answered the question about what you know.
In Ghana.
You told us what you know about what is happening elsewhere. What I'm asking when I say what you know is what you know as far as government so-called plans to reopen schools.
I know there's an effort. I know there is a plan by the GNS and the Ministry of Education. I know plans are far advanced, let me put it that way. And so when I saw the letter to the teacher unions, I asked myself, haven't they been part of the process all this while?
Which letter?
A letter from the GNS to the teacher unions.
Okay.
That letter occasioned the response from the teacher unions. And that letter was actually asking them that, should in case the president announced the opening of schools, we may need to submit a plan, so bring your inputs. Okay. Meanwhile, in the grapevine, we know that, you know, that the thing is already done. You know, and
when you say the thing is already done, what do you mean?
There's a plan. So you see, the context is that this whole attitude of most public institutions, where decisions are taken, and then they are compelled to pretend to consult.
Okay.
It's what is actually happening more or less between the GNS and then the teacher unions. You understand? And so we know that, yes. Well, that's why we issued our statement this morning that it is important for us to learn from the lessons of countries that have gone through this in the past, especially countries in the third world. UNESCO's release on the reopening of schools, or advice to governments, indicated, and I am also aware that experience has shown that in countries that have recuperated from such pandemics, the decision to open school, whether to open school or not, was one, and how to open school. These decisions should be taken from the bottom up. Community leaders, school management committees and PTAs must play a key role in the decision as to whether schools should reopen and how they should reopen. Because at the end of the day, if the school is opened by an administrative fiat or a policy directive from the top, and parents, because they do not consent to the processes, decide not to take their children to school, who will be held responsible? No one can go and beat any student up, any parent up, or lock them up for not taking their child to school.
So to answer my question, you've indicated that first of all, there's been a letter from the Ghana Education Service to the teacher unions, and that's essentially asking them to sort of a certain plan. To
input into a plan, yeah.
To input into a certain plan that's meant to reopen schools gradually. And the teachers do not seem to agree to that. You also say that you know that the plan has, from the grapevine, that the plan has already been put together. Essentially, they just wanted to hear from the teachers. Let me go on Zoom and bring our guest there into this conversation. Patrick Akarianchi, like I said, is a convener of the Teachers and Trainees Advocacy. Dr. Harry Agbano is also a former UTAC president. Doc, I'm going to start with you. Dr. Agbano, what have you also heard, and what do you make of it?
Thank you very much, my sister, and good afternoon to your listeners. I heard that some people are advocating for the reopening of schools, whilst others are not comfortable with that. And I think that we should tread very much cautiously because information from around the world where schools have reopened, there is indication that the children are being infected and there is exponential increase in the virus infection.
Are there any Are there any statistics to back this claim, sir?
Yes, if you read something on France, for example, there is indication that because they have reopened and the children have been asked to go to school, even though they are doing that in phases, schools that have reopened, they are causing increase in the virus infection. And I'm thinking that in our circumstance where we have structures that are very weak, we have classrooms that are very much choked. We are not prepared with the materials that our children will need, our teachers will need. We should be very careful so we don't expose ourselves unnecessarily. Already you can realize that the incidence of infection is going up. Though I think that as a country we are doing very well to contain the situation, we can't say that we are out of the woods yet. And so even though we face a lot of costs, political costs, social costs, educational costs, financial costs as a result of these virus, we should be able to balance ourselves very well so that in our haste to come back to school, we don't rather aggravate the situation and find ourselves palms down.
Okay. Mr. Akarianchi, it's your turn to come into the discussion. Now, what do you also think about reopening the schools? Now, people have said that when it comes to access to internet, which a lot of people are using to learn, now the focus has been on e-learning. People are doing that, but not everybody has access to internet, not even to the gadgets that they can use. So a lot of people are suffering. So how does it hit if we can create the necessary environments within which we can gain a certain level of assurance that people will not unnecessarily be infected, so that people can go back to the classroom and learn? What's wrong with that?
All right, thank you very much. I think it has been a subject that a lot of people are coming on board with different opinions. But you could clearly analyze that the situation that we all find ourselves in, we are in together. And for the betterment of the side of education to also not to be in limbo, it is very important that we begin to look into issues very well and also analyze it critically. You will realize that there was some newsletter. That is what genius brought in the scene for other traditional teacher unions to bring their opinion on that. and I look at it very clearly, realize that they were trying to bring out the input of the various different stakeholders that we have. The paragraph 4 of their write-up indicates that the management of the Ghana Education Service are putting together plans. So the big question is that, what are the plans that the Ghana Education Service has put in place? That one is not quite clear. We look at the other side that we have to also look at. Now they are demanding for opinions and measures. I am of the view that if all things being equal, then we find ourselves very well in a better condition. Then we must look at it very critically before school can reopen. Do we ask ourselves, or we ask ourselves this question: the PPEs that we're talking about, are they ready? You see that the president did 9/10. He took an advice from the medical expert. So if now the education sector or Ghana Education Service has a plan that we need to reopen school, or they are trying to put measures in place, have we consulted the medical experts and also taking information about their visibility checks for us to go to school? That is one thing we should also consider. We also have another point. When you look at the Labor Law Act, that is, I think, 2003, you realize that the employer needs to create risk-free for the employee. So in this case, if we are to even go to school now, are we prepared to have a risk-free in such an environment? Our visit text, as far as advocacy is concerned, tells us that a lot of the classroom are also having a higher number of students. We are promoting and advocating that social distancing should also be part of our precautionary measures.
Okay.
We are to go to now. As a nation or as an education sector, are we prepared for these things?
All right.
In our opinion, if we will advise the Ghana Education Service or bring out an opinion, we will wish that all these measures will be put in place before school can reopen.
Okay.
And the last thing that I will say is that you realize that teachers are not supposed to save lives. Teachers are supposed to mold lives. So in a case that a teacher will try to go to the classroom to teach, to mold, and due to this crisis, we are able to be infected, I think it's going to be a total challenge to the nation.
So I get the point.
I will wish that the Ghana Education Service will relook at it very well in getting every stakeholder's opinion. Then we strategize our plans. And if even we have to even remain home for a whole term, for good measures to be put in place in the education sector for our survival, it will be of our good interest.
I get the point. So the point he's making here is that, first of all, we need to know what the plans are and scrutinize the plan to make sure that it is creating the risk-free environment for teachers, first of all, risk-free environment for students as well, and the fact that these plans being put together by the GES are satisfactory enough. Let's go for the last round of our conversation. Mr. Sari, I come to you with the thoughts that have been raised. Now, Dr. Agbanu is saying that we ought to be very careful because elsewhere, we have seen elsewhere that people have gone back to school and it's not really worked as they expected it to. What are your thoughts to the concerns being raised by Mr. Kakari? That before you send the teachers to school, we need to see the plan and scrutinize it, make sure that it actually provides a risk-free environment before teachers can go to school. Otherwise, if it even has to be longer, let's stay longer at home.
I think their concerns are legitimate and they are grounded in the reality of the ground. Yes, in France, they attempted to open schools, and we know that yesterday about 70+ infections, happened in school, and so schools are being closed down again. We don't expect the reopening of schools to come without challenges. Let me just say that we are not opposed to the reopening of schools. No, we are simply saying that in taking that decision, we need to start with the consultation start with consulting parents at the community level and also at the household level, so that there's consensus with parents on how to open schools and whether to open schools. Okay. Because on the supply side, if schools reopen and parents are not confident enough in the mechanism put in place by government to take their children to school, then the schools will be empty even though they would have opened. Now, quickly, yes, we think that schools can reopen. We had an online conference over this issue, and the conclusions, among others, included the fact that, one, we need to look at giving ourselves 1 month to reopen schools.
1 month? 1
month, yes. Okay. And secondly, what should happen? When 1 month is due, Form 3 students should go to school. Junior high school 3 and senior high school 3 should go to school and then write their exam within a 2-month period. So that by the end of August, we would have had the experience of hosting only Form 3s in secondary and senior high schools, and only Form 3s in junior high schools. And they would have gained that experience in handling them. Then we move into September and confront the actual academic year. In that case, from primary 1 to GSS 2 would have missed Form 3 third term. Okay? And then junior high school, senior high school 1 and senior high school 2 would also miss third term. Now we move into the new academic year in September. Now in September, this is what we think should happen. We need to observe social distancing, 1 meter minimum per WHO UNESCO requirements. And so we are looking at a class size of maximum 30 instead of averagely 60.
Do we have the resources to do that across the country? We can do that because if we do in primary schools or in basic schools, in primary and junior high school, what we're going to do is that we're going to have morning and afternoon shift. The first batch will come to school around 7:30 and close at 11:30, 4 hours. Second batch will come at 12:30, close at 4:30. There won't be any break, so that the kids don't have the time to go and play. So 4 hours and then you close, and then you go on. 4 hours and you close and you go on. And then at the senior high school level, where they are a bit older, you can give them breaks. However, this is what we are proposing, that track green will have to be broken into 2. Track gold into 2. So you are proposing a track system for even basic schools?
No. Basic school shift system, morning and afternoon. And then secondary school, senior high schools track system. Okay. So track green into 2, track green part 1, part 2, and then track gold to same. So that we reduce the class sizes by half. And then also halve the number of students in the dormitories. Given our facilities and the extent to which facilities can only expand in the long term. In the short term, these are the measures that we can deploy to ensure that we have our students in school learning. And so if we are going to space, we can space the semester so well that if track gold part 1 goes to school for 40 days, they come home, and then track gold part 2 will go to school. And then track green part 1 will go to school, and then track green part 2. If we have that in place, we will have a situation where we would have halved the number of students in class at any time. Okay. Potentially maximum 30 in a class. And then we can reasonably expect to have the 1 meter spacing in the classroom. And then also to have a significantly reduced number of students in the dormitories. Okay. Whilst putting in place the precautionary measures, i.e. providing nose masks, water, sanitation and hygiene facilities in school, and then also laser thermometers in schools for this checking. And then finally, we also indicated that should schools reopen, we need to be prepared to test everyone on reopening dates. Okay. So that we're testing about 7 million children, so that we have an idea about the situation we are dealing with at the point of entry.
So these are your proposals. Well, exactly. Let's wrap it up with what you think. Those of our guests who are joining us via Zoom. I start with you again, Doc Agbana. What do you think about this proposal?
I am wondering how we would do that. We have less hospitals in this country than schools all over this country. We've been having this pandemic for about a month and over now.
No, we've actually started in March.
In March?
Yes.
2-3 months. But we still have hospitals that don't have the protective that do not have the basic.
You need to lower the volume on your set so that you can hear me through the Zoom, because it's interfering with our conversation.
It's because somebody's mic is not off. So can you hear me now?
I do hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
Yes. I'm saying that we have fewer hospitals in this country than schools. 3 months or so on with this pandemic, we still have hospitals that cannot have supplies. Now, if we are talking about schools and public schools scattered all over this country, I'm wondering how we can fully prepare to receive these children and teach this. Number two, with what number of teachers? The same teachers, running shifts, some coming in for 4 hours, going with another set of teachers, or the same teachers working all day long. And at what cost?
Okay.
So I think that there is no harm in thinking through the problem and beginning to do consultations as to the way forward.
Okay.
But I think that to begin to make such proposals doesn't seem to me as if we fully appreciate the enormity of the problem on hand.
Okay.
Yes, I am sorry. I'm not sure the proposals, they are feasible. But let's first begin with consultation. Let's think through what we can do. And then through the consultation, we can come to a certain agreement of what we could do. But if you have already come to the table with preconceived ideas,
all right,
and all we want to do is for people to approve of it and go with it so that we go and try, test the ground.
So it has to start from the consultations. Irrespective of the proposals that are available, it still has to go through the process of consultation, is the point you're making.
There must be a bottom-up approach.
All right.
Not top-down approach.
Okay, let me bring in Patrick for your final words. You have already made your, you took quite some time to list what your concerns are. So let me just take your final words as we wrap up this conversation.
Thank you very much for this opportunity once again. I think that the Ghana Education Service, they have taken a right approach to take the views of other stakeholders, but I think they should extend their rotation with other bodies to a larger number of organizations or civil society for effective solution to this teething challenge.
Right.
But like my brother with you was saying, you see that this shift system can come in place when we have prepared ourselves immediately, when we also want to reopen schools. You see, we have some people who are still at home. They are not teachers. They are unemployed. They offer the education that they still need to be employed. We can create these instances for such people to come in as we deploy the strategy of the shift system.
All right.
Having said that, I feel that this pandemic is very serious, and the education sector contains a larger number of people that should, in case we should even decide vis-a-vis the president say we should go back, these measures must be of a very good interest, that we need to prepare ourselves very for it.
Okay.
Finally, I would say that the Ghana Education Service should rather again try and bring out their plans so that other educational stakeholders can also bring up their view. I believe if we should hold on for now and try to bring out all these measures, even for a term, like I said, there was a time, a revolution, a whole university was closed down for a year. We can revise education system.
Yeah. Patrick, thank you very much for your thoughts. Patrick Akarientry is a convener of Teachers and Trainees Advocacy. You also had Dr. Harry Agbanu, who is a former UTAC president. His position is that you need to have a consultation process. Now, I've been talking to Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare, whose position is that they have put together a proposal for a shift system and a track system. Whilst we put, sorry?
From September.
Oh, from September, whilst we put in the measures right now and prepare towards September. That's their proposal. Well, the 4 teacher unions are not enthused. They don't want to go back to school at the moment because they're not sure of what the plans are. Patrick is saying that let's bring the plans out and let's all have a discussion on it. That's what Dr. Agbana is also saying. We need to have a consultation on that. Well, we call it a day. It looks to me like this is a conversation that we'll have a bit more as we flesh out what exactly can be done. Should we even go back to school now? Or should we just start planning, like he says, and aim at a later date? We'll still keep on with that conversation. But thank you so much for coming, Mr. Asare.
Thank you.
And thank you for those of you who joined us. In fact, I do have some messages here. Let's see if I can take 1 or 2 of them because we already have pressed with time. But we need to get you involved as well in this conversation, right? And this one says the information, it's a long one, the information the no-teacher unions have given to GAS will not help solve the problem at hand. In the first place, they unanimously agreed to further closure of schools because they are on government's payroll. If they stay home till the end of the year, they'll still enjoy their pay and allowances. Did they consider the plight of thousands of teachers in the private sector? So you are coming from a private sector's perspective. You think that it is the longer students stay at home, it's beneficiary to teachers in the public sector, but not to the private sector. But we're looking at health here, remember. You say that they claim the children are going to school is dangerous. I want them to visit the community's daytime when the parents have gone to work. The children cluster to play the whole day. If these children are in school, their protection will be far better. It's a matter of coming out with ideas that will solve the problem, not to create more fear and panic. Interesting views you have there. Kwabena Che sent that from Ashoma. Let me add this final one, looking for someone who sent a message much earlier on before we progress all the way up until this time. Says you should allow final year students to go and write and automatically promote the rest into September, because the virus is still out there. Because to be honest, I will not allow my children to go to school until everything is settled. So some people are ready to go to school, some people are not. It looks like it's really a mixed reaction there. We'll see how it goes. I'll take a quick break.